Yo! So, what we got going on today is I'm a little late to the party, but Chapter 1167 just introduced a bunch of things that I think is pretty crazy, and it's giving me a headache. So, we got all the contract names, and we got what the symbol for the first one looked like, which is the one that Shanks and Harold both had. There's two different translations though, and I'm going to give the names of both translations. We have the fan translation, which refers to the three of them as the Shallow Sea Contract, the Deep Sea Contract, and the Deep Sea Contract. Then we have the official English Viz translation, which is the Shallow Covenant, the Depths Covenant, and the Abyss Covenant, which I think both of them are very important for what I'm going to be talking about, and I'll get to that in a little bit. Today I am attempting, though, to break down the connection between the contracts and the Abyss and why I find this as a headache. So, Emu is linked to the sea or the Sea Devil. It's basically confirmed at this point, I feel like. Now, I don't know for sure, and I mean nobody really knows for sure, but I don't know if I think Emu is the Sea Devil or maybe possessed by it, or using its powers in some form of fashion, but I don't think it matters. I really don't think it matters. Now, Emu is connected to it in some capacity though. People have had theories on whether Emu is the sea god, the earth god, whatever, for a very long time. And even though Emu is Umi backwards, which means sea in Japanese, which people use that to say, well, it's pretty obvious. And yeah, that is pretty obvious, but I think that the contract naming also makes it a lot clearer on what Emu is, or connected to. One thing I want to go ahead and point out real fast is that Oda never names things for no reason. Every time we have seen Emu in action, the things Emu does or says has been eternally consistent with what seems to be a set of rules. I don't believe at any point in time Emu has ever used Dami Reversi without first attacking the victim before flipping them. And then also, they still have to say the name Dami Reversi as well. So there is stipulations to Emu's powers. Now, the examples that we've seen is in Elbaf, Emu used a big giant gun in order to attack Dory and Bragi, and then in God Valley, we've seen Emu stab Zebek with their tentacle-like arms, and Zebek said that this didn't hurt him, he didn't feel any pain with this, so pain isn't a necessity for Dami Reversi. Pain is not needed for Dami Reversi. I think the key for Dami Reversi is penetration. Pause, but yeah. This could also be why in Elbaf, Emu resulted in using a huge gun for Dory and Bragi, because not only were they in Gunko's body, so maybe they couldn't use their tentacle-like arms because they were in Gunko's body. Whereas when they did that to Roxy Zebek in God Valley, Emu was actually merged physically on top of Saturn. So it could have been that they aren't capable of using it in Gunko's body. But it could also be that due to how large Dory and Bragi are, that maybe the tentacle-like arms wouldn't have even worked. So they had to use a big, huge gun to match these huge giants. The giant bullets could have been the only way to penetrate their bodies to begin with. This brings me back to the contracts. Anytime we have seen Emu use their power, there seems to be consistent rules. It's like a board game. We kind of saw that Dami Reversi looks like a board game, where you have people flipped and people not flipped. The contracts being named in relation to the sea, I don't think that is purely symbolic. It could contain metaphor, as in the next mark you gain, the deeper you enter into Emu's power. But why is it correlated with the sea and depths to begin with? That's what I think is not purely symbolic. I think Oda has intention behind that. And also, it's interesting to me that the marks actually go in descending order of superiority. The weakest mark is the shallow Covenant or the Shallow Sea Contract, depending on what translation you use. And the more powerful one is the Abyss Covenant or the Deep Sea Contract, which that is descending, that's going down. So the deeper you go, the more power you actually would be given by Imu. It could be metaphorically suggesting that when you have the Shallow Sea Contract, you're only at the surface of Imu's power, and the deeper you go, the more submerged you get into Imu's power. But it's still playing on the idea of the sea, and being at the shallow end, and then being in the deepest end of the sea. And also, with Shanks, he received the same mark as Harold at this point in time in this chapter. He has the Shallow Sea Contract, which this makes him a devoted blade of God. And this is mentioned by the Gorosei that the Shallow Sea Contract is a minor contract, which, me personally, I believe that this just doesn't do anything. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the Shallow Sea Contract doesn't do anything. It's maybe prepping the body for Imu, or for Imu's power, but I don't think it grants anything. And this is why when we see Shanks, he still has to heal from his wound that he received from Blackbeard sometime around this point in history. And even Shamrock tells him that, Shanks, you need to let the wound heal. That's basically what he said. If Shanks had already had immortality, then it would have regenerated the wound. He wouldn't need to just let it heal and scar up. It would have just completely healed. And then Garling also states to Harold that if Shanks were to make a deep sea contract, then that would give him a boost on the level of Shamrock, which at this point in time, Shamrock is known as a Holy Knight or a Knight of God, depending on the translation. So I believe that this means in order to receive immortality, you have to gain a deep sea contract. This also means that in order to be a Holy Knight, you have to have a deep sea contract. Every single Holy Knight has a deep sea contract. And this also confirms that Shanks let his arm get bit off by a sea beast when he saved Luffy on purpose, because it didn't regenerate. So the theories of him willingly losing his arm are correct, and that it may also be possible that he had no other way to get rid of the contract once it's there without losing his arm before ever receiving a deep sea contract, because if he would have got the deep sea contract, then he would have had immortality. He wouldn't have been able to lose his arm. There has also been some theories for a long time that, or I would say for a good amount of time, that Shanks wanted to eat the fruit and he wanted to become Joy Boy. But I don't believe this at all, and I never really have, because if that were the case, I feel like he would have ate the fruit the moment he got it. Instead, he held on to it. I think I like the theory more that Shanks wanted Roger's son to eat the devil fruit. He wanted to find his son and give his son that devil fruit, because Roger wanted his son to find the One Piece. And he never decided to get rid of the mark until after Luffy had eaten the fruit and saved him. Or maybe he did think about it, but he never went and got rid of it until Luffy had already ate the devil fruit. I think that what if Shanks himself couldn't remove the mark? What if the mark prevents self-removal? It's maybe possible, maybe not. I feel like Shanks had many opportunities that he could have just removed it himself, but he never did. He only lost it after Luffy had already ate the devil fruit, and he lost it in a very specific way, which was when he saved Luffy from a sea beast when he was in the sea because he couldn't swim. And in a way, which a lot of people have already talked about this as well, I'm not the creator of this, but in a way, this was the very first act of liberation Luffy had ever accomplished without knowing it. So it was solidifying to Shanks that Luffy is the one to be Joy Boy, because he himself was liberated. Now this brings me back to the Abyss. Oda takes inspiration from sources all over, and the Abyss exists in real life. It's known as the Abyssal Zone. It's a deep zone within the sea or the ocean, And I haven't seen a huge amount of theories, but I am sure that they exist. There's most likely a billion theories that the abyss is in the depths of the sea. And I think that this is potentially confirmed because with both translations, you have the third mark of Imu, which is the final mark that you get, and it's also the deepest mark, which you could take this however you want, whether it's metaphorical or whether Oda has intention behind it. The third mark and the final mark, in the official Viz translation, it is called the Abyss Covenant. In the fan translation, it's called the Deep Deep Sea Covenant, or the Deep Deep Sea Contract. To me, this does point to the abyss potentially existing deep in the sea, or maybe it's not actually part of the sea, it exists underneath the sea itself. And this is where my headache comes into play, which I am going to get to in just a moment. Firstly, we know the abyss is how the Holy Knights, the Gorosei, and even Imu teleports. We have seen the pentagrams, which they're known as abyss portals, basically. But what we don't know for sure, or that I can recall of, correct me if I'm wrong, is if the abyss is actually a place they move within, so like kind of a little dimension gateway, or if it's simply just teleportation. There have even been theories in the past that the One Piece itself is in the abyss, and that this is why Shanks has a crew of only Haki users, because if the abyss is in the sea, or it's below the sea, then Devil Freezers can't make it to Laugh Tale, and this is why Buggy was sick when the Roger crew was getting close to its location. I think that this does hold some merit. If Laugh Tale is in the abyss, and this is in the sea or beneath the sea, then Devil Fruits cannot make it there. And we already know that Shanks has a lot of information on the world right now, and he does not have Devil Fruit members on his crew. But now, time for the headache. This is finally coming into play. If that is true, or if the abyss is within the sea or under the sea, then how come Holy Knights with Devil Fruits like Gunko, Summers, and Killingham, I'm not calling them saints, but how come these dudes can use the abyss for travel? That is perplexing me. It's mind-boggling me. Imu is capable of marking people and giving them power, and those same people are able to eat devil fruits and gain those powers. If Imu is the Sea Devil or using the Sea Devil's power, that may not be that much of an issue, as this doesn't mean Imu is the sea itself or has full authority over the nature of the sea, but instead, Imu could just represent the darkness of the sea and the dangers of it, like when ships crash and people die and they sink and whatnot. Yeah, storms and hurricanes. But even then, this makes me confused about the abyss itself, because it feels obvious to me that the abyss is an actual plane of some sort, and that it exists deep within the sea, or even like the earth, which by earth I mean like the globe, the entire planet. The contracts that Imu gives, they can't be named solely for symbolism. I can't believe that that's only just symbolism, because everything that we have seen with Imu has shown to be very specific, very thought out, with rules, whether Imu uses magic or some other type of power. And also, another thing to add, when we saw Imu first take over Gunko's body in Elbaf, Imu hasn't used Gunko's Devil Fruit. At least as of right now. Imu has only used their own power. Wouldn't it have been easier to just use Gunko's Devil Fruit to stab Dory and Bragi instead of pulling out a grimoire-like book and a huge gun to shoot them? I think there could be a few reasons. One of them being that Imu can't use the Devil Fruit of the person they possess. This would explain why Imu hasn't used Gunko's Devil Fruit when possessing Gunko's body. Or, Imu can't use Dami Reversi without using their own power, so therefore Imu can't use a Devil Fruit on a person if they want to Dami Reverse that person. But yet Imu is still capable of giving other Holy Knights a mark or a contract so they can gain power from Imu, and then they could also have a Devil Fruit at the same time. We know Holy Knights have Devil Fruits, and we know that they like competing for Devil Fruits. They fight for them at human hunting events. Originally, I thought of what Vegapunk said when he made his theory that Devil Fruits came from a person's desire. Every Devil Fruit came into existence, according to the Vegapunk theory, because at one point in time, a person desired that specific power. Which also would imply a person desired to be worn as a jacket. And I'm not gonna lie to you, that was probably a dude like Sanji. This made me think, though, about the way and how Devil Fruits are liberated. A person has biological limitations, so a Devil Fruit power, in a way, surpasses that. So I wondered, is there any potential connection with the actual Sun God Nika in the existence of Devil Fruits themselves? The reason the sea rejects the Devil Fruit users is because it is seen as unnatural. The sea is natural, and the sea is just massive in One Piece. It's literally like 90% of the planet, probably. But I thought this could be explained as well as a Sun God Nika versus Imu Sea Devil thing, where if Nika and the Ancient Kingdom are responsible for Devil Fruits, and then Imu is the Sea Devil or uses the Sea Devil's power, whatever the case may be, then it could just be like a natural opposition, and that's why they reject each other. If that's the case, then Imu can't be using a Devil Fruit. But Imu is able to give marks and give power to Holy Knights that have Devil Fruits. So if Imu is the Sea Devil, why would it allow its minions to have powers potentially brought forth by its ancient enemy? And I'm also talking about Sun God Nika, though. I'm not talking about Joy Boy in specific. In a way, I thought around that was that Devil Fruits don't actually enslave you. Now, Zoans could maybe conquer and take over your mind, but you still have to awaken it to even get to that point. And I still think that Devil Fruits are in a way liberating, because if Vegapunk is right or partially right, they were brought forth by a person wanting them, meaning a person with the power they wanted. If they had received that power, that would be pretty freeing. So if this is the case and Devil Fruits are tied to Nika in some way, then Imu could still allow their minions to gain the powers of them because the Devil Fruits don't enslave you. It could have just been brought forth by Nika's power. That's all just speculation, though. This is just me spitballing. The main point still stands, though, that Devil Fruit users are cursed by the sea. But if the abyss is under the sea, or a deep layer of the sea, then how can Holy Knights with Devil Fruits travel through it? I have came up with, I don't know if anybody else has came up with it, but at least I came up with this myself right now, and maybe some other people have similar ideas. One idea is that the abyss isn't actually sea itself, but it's a separate layer or even a dimension beneath the sea, so it doesn't count for the Devil Fruit weaknesses because it's not actually water, but it still is below the water. This can explain why we haven't seen anyone wet when they come out of the portals, or I don't remember anybody showing to be wet when they come out of the abyss portals. And the abyss itself could be like hell or something. 2. It is a layer deep in the sea, and it's still part of the sea, but that Devil Fruit Holy Knights, they have never been seen to travel alone in the abyss portals. If we assume Shamrock himself has no Devil Fruit, but Shamrock's sword could have a Devil Fruit, and we know that inanimate objects can eat Devil Fruits, but he himself has not been shown that he has a Devil Fruit, then the other 3 people that went with him to Elbaf, maybe they couldn't be able to travel alone without him, because maybe if it is a sea, they can still get weak by it, but they won't die or get that injured because they have Imu's immortality, so they can survive it and they can be taken out of it as long as they have someone that did not consume a Devil Fruit with them. third idea that I have is that the Abyss actually isn't under the sea at all, and it's simply a separate dimension or just normal teleportation, and I'm reading too far into it with the contract naming that the Gorosei had given to Harold. That's possible. But then there is a potential fourth option, and that could be that at the Abyss or the Deep Deep Sea contract, so the third mark upgrade that you get, the third tier, it could potentially allow you to lose the Devil Fruit weakness. If Imu is the Sea Devil, that could be possible. Now, I don't necessarily know if I believe that myself. I mean, I don't think that that's the case, but I'm not ruling it out of possibility. But for now, I like the first one the most. It could also explain why it's believed that Davy D. Jones is cursed to live at the bottom of the seafloor. This could only be possible, or at least I think of two of the most plausible ways it's possible, is one, he's a fishman, and he could survive in the sea. So if the Abyss is actually just the deepest layer of the sea, then he could survive down there, imprisoned in some way, because he's a fishman. Or, if it's not sea at all, but it's just a zone or like a dimension of some sort beneath it, I like to imagine it as like a reverse sky. So we have the sky, which exists above the land and the sea, and then there could be the Abyss, which is below the actual sea, and it's like a reverse sky. And if he's locked there, he doesn't have to be a fishman, and he could just be stuck there, and since he's not actually in the sea, then he can't drown. If the Abyss is under Imu's control, and you need to actually have a contract in order to traverse it, then it makes sense for Davy D. Jones to be stuck there. And if there is no actual seawater, then there's no way for him to move anywhere. But regardless, all of this has my brain hurting, and I won't know more until Oda releases more, but I am keeping my eyes open. Imu is basically working, in my opinion, and I've seen others believe this or give a theory as well, that Imu is using a different power system. Maybe it's a power system that anyone could use, or maybe it's a power system that only they can use. But I can't imagine at this point that Imu is using a Devil Fruit, because there is so much wordplay involving the sea, which the sea literally is the counter to Devil Fruits. And I don't think that this is all just symbolism. I think that there is intention. In the Gorosei, we don't even know if their forms are actually from Devil Fruits or not. They could just be from Imu's power. And we also know Imu can transform as well. And it also doesn't seem like Imu gets any weaker when giving others contracts. But anywho, I'm going to go ahead and end my video here. If you enjoyed the video and you got things to add or to maybe correct me on, then go ahead and let me know in the comments on what you think, and consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel for more. Peace!